Factorio is a drug addiction that primarily focuses on building, designing, and growing your very own factory. But it also happens to include vehicles. But have you ever noticed how weird these vehicles are? Or how they ever... Oh no.
Mercedes.
The very first vehicle you probably unlock in Factorio is the humble car, filling a scout and reconnaissance role for you in the early game. It boasts excellent speed, topping out at around 124.7 kilometers an hour, or 77.48 miles per hour, with the best fuel under normal circumstances. But with a higher rarity car and high rarity fuel, you can top out the vehicle at 202 kilometers an hour, or 125.8 miles per hour, which is absolutely insane for a lightweight dune buggy-like vehicle. In the real world, most high-end commercially available dune buggies only top out at a slightly higher speed than the normal rarity car, with only the most extreme one-of-a-kind custom builds reaching above the 160 kilometers per hour mark. And somehow the engineer managed to build this hot rod on an uninhabited world with just a box of scraps.
I was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps! Well, I'm sorry.
This crazy top speed is even more insane given just how lightweight the vehicle is. When placed in the rocket silo, we get a weight of 1 ton. But this is most likely inaccurate. Not only does this not match the weight of all the parts required to build the car, but most vehicles when transported on a fast-moving aircraft require extensive bracing and packaging to keep their weight from shifting during flight. And if there is one aircraft that needs to be perfectly balanced at all times, it's definitely rockets. So a much more accurate method of weight is to measure how heavy the individual parts are. Doing this, we find that the car's absolute maximum possible weight is 52.5 kilograms, or 115 pounds. And if we measure the dimensions, we get 9 feet long by 5 feet wide. This tiny vehicle, which is no heavier than a go-kart, can go over 100 miles an hour, which is terrifying. But this is nothing compared to how weird the engine is. Judging by the recipe, which requires 8 single-cylinder engines, we have to assume that our insane engineer put a fucking V8 into his Fisher-Price Barbie Jeep. Since we know the vehicle's weight and top speed, we can calculate the horsepower of the little buggy. But we specifically need the speed achieved after reaching a certain distance. So I set up a quarter-mile track and clocked both the fastest possible and slowest possible variations of each car and got their trap speed, or their top speed achieved after a quarter mile. Once we have that, we can run the calculations for horsepower using both the highest and lowest possible weights. And we get 1.67 horsepower in the worst case, and 593.3 horsepower in the fastest case. Which, if you don't know much about cars, that much power with that much torque on such a lightweight and tiny frame tends to... But the engine's power isn't the only thing weird about it. The vehicle can also take a variety of solid fuels to power it. The reason that this is a problem is that normal engines require liquid or gas fuel to work, since they are sprayed into the combustion chamber and ignited in order to move the piston. In order for an engine to properly utilize solid fuels, it must first burn the solids to boil water, which then turns a turbine that rotates the drivetrain. Or you must put the solid fuel through the gasification process, whereby solid fuels are converted into a flammable gas before being injected into a cylinder and ignited. Either option requires a lot more infrastructure attached to the car, and are far less efficiently burnt than standard liquid vehicle fuels are, resulting in far lower power output for the engine overall. The small buggy is also able to carry more than double what a train cargo wagon can hold, which, if filled with the most densely storable item in the game, the portable fusion reactors, means the car can carry an absurd 3.2 million pounds in its trunk without slowing down. The fact that the engineer managed to build a vehicle using either of these fuel methods, an insane cargo capacity, and such a high performance is almost beyond belief. Introducing the apex predator of the engineer, the train. In Factorio, trains actually make the most sense out of all the vehicles, thanks to trains being well established as taking solid fuel via their steam engines. Where they start to get a little off the rails,
Do you get it? I said rails.
is in the speed category. In reality, steam engines have a topped out at around 203 kilometers per hour or 126 miles per hour. But the Factorio train is capable of hitting a max speed of 356.4 kilometers an hour. That's almost 221 miles per hour, with a legendary locomotive equipped with legendary nuclear fuel. And probably making Denzel Washington and Chris Pine absolutely shit themselves upon seeing it. We also continue on with the nonsensical weight readings from the rocket silo, since according to it, a locomotive only weighs about 200 pounds. In fact, the train weighs less than a fifth of what the car does, despite requiring more than double the amount of parts to build it. Performing the same calculations as we did with the car, we can find its max horsepower, although keep in mind that these numbers will change depending on how much weight the train is currently pulling, which you will be pleased to know is actually a sane amount for a high-end locomotive, with the single locomotive's limit being around 212 of the heaviest type of rail car, or 424,000 pounds. Although if we calculate using inventory like we did with the car, then we find that the total weight that a single train can pull is over 678 million pounds worth of fusion reactors, which is, dare I say, a little unrealistic. The tank. The first bit of real power the engineer gets to have. She's a heavy-duty vehicle, topping out at 1 ton. The same as the car. But she comes with a variety of weapons attached. 1 main cannon and 2 auxiliary weapons, which are most likely just the handheld weapons mounted on the inside of the hull through a small hole. Since we can actually spawn these weapons in-game in the engineer's hands, and they are identical to the handheld counterparts, just with a slightly increased range. The tank is capable of a max speed of 117.5 kilometers an hour, with legendary fuel and tank.
Objection!
Actually, the tank is the first vehicle you obtain that comes with an equipment grid, allowing additional attachments to the vehicle, all of which are completely sensible as attachments, except for one. For some reason, you can attach a bunch of exoskeleton legs to the tank to increase the speed. Why does this work? How does this work? Are we Fred Flintstoning our legs through the bottom of the vehicle to make it go faster? Does the tank become a horrible centipede monster with a bunch of bionic feet?
Did somebody say
Feet?
Truly, the best reasoning is that the image for the bionic legs is just misleading, and is just simply meant to be an upgrade to the motor systems of anything they equip to. But regardless, a tank equipped with all legendary legs hits a top speed of 411.2 kilometers an hour, or more than 255 miles an hour, which is so fast that it takes a full 15 seconds to come to a complete stop, thanks to the increased momentum of the tank. But this max speed is completely impossible. Real-life tanks don't get anywhere near this fast, and that's because anything above 100 miles an hour would cause the tank treads to rip themselves apart from the forces alone. But is a max speed tank even worth it? I mean, the tank's primary cannon is surely better than just running over. Once you and the engineer tire of Novice and the Biters, you can then gain access to rockets and space platforms. The rocket's main mechanic is utilizing a weight-based cargo system to deliver items into a waiting space platform. And this system does not make fucking sense. As I've been alluding to this whole video, the rocket's weight requirements are at best unreliable and at worst nonsensical. Some items weigh less than their final product, which could be from removing excess matter, so that could make sense, but some, like, the tank and the car, weigh more than the individual parts they take to build. Where is this mass coming from, game? Is it aura? Does the tank gain aura when built and that's weighing it down? How does a portable fusion reactor weigh as much as a non-portable fusion reactor? How does 50 armor-piercing rounds weigh as much as 50 cannon shells, game? I've tried to rationalize this by saying that different items may require different storage containers to transport them, but there is only so much bullshit that I can fucking feed myself. Like, sure, the engineer probably doesn't weigh 1 ton. It's most likely due to all the life support needed to transport live crew that makes up most of the weight. But a car does not weigh more than an artillery wagon. Game, you cannot lie to me anymore. And I know what you're thinking. Orb, it's just a game mechanic that needs balancing. Shut up. Then why did they specifically make it weight-based? They could have just replaced the numbers here with percentages and everything would have been fine. Before Space Age, rockets didn't have any weight mechanic. It didn't need to be there. So why did they add this to specifically torment me?
I'm completely and mentally stable. Oh, hey, look, a civilian airliner. Do it. You know you want to do it. Lock it. Just do it. Just lock onto that civilian airliner. Come on, just do it. Do it now. Just do it. Lock it. Lock it. Lock on. Just do it. Come on, just do it. Do it. I can't take it anymore.
The Spidertron is the final vehicle you unlock in Factorio, completing the logical power progression of car to tank to giant mecha death spider with nuclear armaments. Although least in Space Age, there is a proper reason for the engineer to create such a monstrosity, since you unlock it after studying the pentapods on Gleba, and essentially just build a robot version of them. Before Space Age, this thing came out of absolutely nowhere in the endgame. Like, the best theory at the time was that the engineer is just a big fan of Wild Wild West. But he is canonically very smart, so that probably isn't true. Regardless, its design shockingly makes a lot of sense. It weighs in at a total of
Fucking cares.
But the primary advantage to a legged craft is to quickly traverse uneven terrain at the cost of speed versus wheeled or tracked vehicles. And since the Robo Spider has a nuclear reactor generating electricity at its core, which it then uses to power the legs and other electrical systems, it doesn't have any of the weird engine quirks required by the other vehicles to function. But this does mean that it loses out on the speed buff from the legendary fuel. Then again, it also has a bigger equipment grid, allowing it to equip more exoskeleton legs, which also makes sense as an attachment to the giant spider. So when fully decked out, the Spidertron tops off at... As horrifying as this is to look at, we can actually slow down the clip to find that the Spidertron's speed actually fluctuates between 458 kilometers an hour and 555 kilometers an hour, which gives us the average top speed of 507 kilometers per hour, or 315 miles per hour, easily eclipsing every other vehicle in the game in an absolutely horrifying way. This is so fast that you can almost outrun the Factorio chunk generation as long as you're going in a straight line, and biters and worms have to get lucky in order to score a hit. Safe to say that this is pure absurdity. Any vehicle with the drag coefficient of a brick on telephone poles is going to have a tough time getting to that speed, on top of the already absurd electricity demand that each leg would require to move at that speed. Truly terrifying. The visions of this thing scurrying across Novice will haunt me for years to come. What is up, my spiderlings? Timu Hermaeus Mora here. If you're interested in acquiring any of the vehicle wallpapers I used in this video, they can be found on my Patreon. If you want more discount beholder content, I also stream every Sunday, and I'll be streaming Factorio Space Block this week. And lastly, you see that guy? He said you look stupid, and you're dumb, and you're ugly. You gonna let him talk to you like that? Go on, beat his ass, I got your back.
Chick evil.